And welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, just welcome. I'm so happy to see you, so glad you stopped by. Thank you very much for anybody who takes the time or bothers to do so. My name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And yes, welcome to The Cabin in the Woods. Finally got around to doing this one. Now, The Cabin in the Woods was released in 2011. Can you believe that? It was directed by Drew Goddard. It was written by Josh Whedon, Mr. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And also written by Drew Goddard, starring Fran Kranz, Chris Hemsworth, Kristen Connolly, and Anna Hutchison. It really was, I swear. So, Cabin in the Woods opens in a lab-type environment. So we're like in this, some kind of, looks like a military lab. And they're talking about worldwide research scenarios. And so we don't know what that means, of course. And they let us know that all of the scenarios, whatever that is, has failed, except for the U.S. and Japan. And that the U.S. and Japan, it's on our backs now. We're the only two scenarios that are left. Of course, we have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. Then we're introduced to Dana and Jules, Kurt, Marty, and Holden. And they are all college students who are going to, is it Kurt or is it Holden's? But anyway, one of them's got a cousin or brother that has bought some land, and they are going to have a nice little weekend in this beautiful lake at the cabin. So they take off in their RV. It's a fun bunch. I like this little group of people. Of course, I bet your crush is Chris Hemsworth. No, it's not, actually. I like Marty. Yeah, I like the geek. Thank you very much. So, the lab seems to be getting ready for some kind of operation. And we see the RV arrive at this broken down looking gas station. Where they need to get gas. This really asshole weirdo guy comes out, scares the hell out of him, scares the hell out of me, actually. I didn't see him behind Holden, and so I got my first jump scare right there. And they get directions, they get some ass. They get some see, I put get gas and asshole owner too close together. So that's where we just got some get ass from. So they get gas and directions from the asshole owner. That's the correct way it's written. And they drive through this tunnel where we see this bird flying. It's like an eagle or harpy or something. No, it's not a harpy. That's a mythological creature. But we see like a bird. It looked like an eagle to me, but it ends up like crashing into like a holographic matrix, and you're like, well, that's interesting. What's coming now? So they drive through the tunnel, which obviously means that they've entered this holographic construct. They arrive at the cabin and they look around, and you have that two-way mirror scene, which is pretty cool. There's lots of weird stuff laying everywhere. We are then treated to the ever-increasing facts of this film, and that is that they are all being watched. They're all on the monitors. The cabin is CCTV. In every corner, they're being watched by those people in the lab. So they are part of this scenario. Now, We see them discussing the tests in the labs. They're even taking bets on. We don't really know at first what they're taking bets on. We also see them talking to that store owner who's obviously insane. All five of them go swimming. Again, we see back to the lab taking bets on, whether it was going to work or not. We later find out what that is, and I'll tell you. But Dana was they're playing Truth or Dare, which has a very gross scene, in my opinion, and that's where they get the blonde, Jules. They get her to make out with the taxidermied wolf. And what she does in that scene is fucking nasty. Like sticking her tongue in this dead taxidermy wolf's head, and all. It's like, oh my god. That's just, but then again, I have a thing about that. No offense to you dog owners, but tongues and dogs' mouths and shit like that is just like, I can't even think about it. It's making me nauseous right now. But, you people are way too friendly with your dogs, if you know what I mean, where the face and lips and mouth are concerned. It's just, I don't get it. Anyway, so she does the horrific thing with the wolf's head, and then it's Dana's turn, and they kind of like egg her on, and she agrees to take a dare. Well, they dare her to go downstairs in the basement. Now, the basement is full of all of these dolls and toys and what almost looks like a Hellraiser cube, and which is what it's supposed to be. They just, let's make it just different enough to not get fucking sued, right? So, everybody is like fascinated with a different thing, such as Kurt is fascinated with the seashell, and there's the Necronomicon, which is obviously the Evil Dead. Everything was like a nod to these other movies. What do they call that? Meta. So they're being watched as they choose, and sure enough, they read the Latin inscription in the book, and zombies start coming up all around the cabin. Now you see what they were betting on, because, everybody's like, oh, zombies again, back at the lab. And, you get to see the betting board, and it turns out that what they were betting on was which kind of monsters was going to kill this group. And that their choice of what they were playing with down there, whichever thing that they did that triggered first, so that's what was going on. So Dana triggered the zombies with the Latin inscription in their version of the Evil Dead Necronomicon. And the dead rise. So, yes, they were betting on what they would choose in the cellar, which determined which legendary monsters would come forth. Now, Marty is the only one that seems to be thinking, even though he's been given this like chemically altered weed, because they're doing that too. They're pumping in chemicals, and they've been arranging this shit from God knows how long, because they were basically chosen, this group. So he is the only one that really seems to think, I see some connections here, something's going on. So Kurt and Jules ends up going outside to make out, where they're attacked by zombies. We then get to see the mechanism. When Jules is killed, we see the blood go down into this mechanism that looks like, clockwork. type mechanism, which was really cool. Personally, I think that particular thing was like a nod to, oh gosh, I can't remember that movie. I see it in my face. See it in my face? You can see it in my face. I see it in my mind. Anyway. So we see this clockwork when Jules is killed and it goes down there. The blood goes down there, and we see the text like actually giving a prayer or something. So you start really knowing that, okay, this is not like military tests or something. This is something mystical, mythological. There's something else going on here. It's certainly not like, military tests gone wrong. So Marty ends up going outside when he hears voices, and that's a kind of funny scene, because he's like, you're not going to make me do anything with your voices, and then he does exactly what the voices told him to do. So he goes outside to take a leak, and he almost gets gotten by a zombie, but Kurt shows up, so he's still alive. And they manage to get back inside, and then bang, bang, bang on the door, and it's this big giant ultra Uber Zed who throws Jules' head, and Dana catches it. So that was pretty cool. Now it's about this time that Kurt tells them to all get into their rooms where they're locked in, and Marty finds the cams. He finds a cam, and he finds the wires all in the room, and he knows now what's up. So the techs are kind of upset at that, and they need him to be dead now. So they sort of speed up the Zed to kill him. We'll find out that there's even more to that as well. So Dana and Kurt are in the basement, and Dana actually turns into pretty badass, and she kills the big Zed, and Marty, and we think Marty's dead at this time. So Holden and Kurt and Dana end up running outside. They get to the RV. Then we're switched back to the lab, where we see all of these little 9-year-old Japanese schoolgirls defeat, I guess, which was supposed to be the Grudge, but they defeat the creature that they had summoned in their scenario. So, they turned it into a frog, which was funny. So the lab techs are very, very upset, but also very excited, because Japan has just lost their scenario. So we're like, okay, so all of these are, but why? You know what I mean? So now it's up to us. The U.S. is the final stand. We have to win this scenario. So Dana's also figured it all out. Kurt and Holden and Dana, they get that close to getting away because something's wrong, and the tunnel is supposed to collapse to keep them from getting out. So they almost get there, and they manage to fix the problem. They're trapped in the tunnel, but Kurt decides to jump the ravine with his bike. And I admit, even though we saw the bird thing, it didn't occur to me. I was like, well, something's going to happen to him, but I didn't know what. So he jumps that ravine and crashes into that holographic thing and just goes down into the earth. And you're like, damn, I forgot about that. And I just saw that at the beginning of the movie. But then again, it's not really our responsibility, because we didn't know where the line exactly was, but we do now. So it goes right through that opening of that tunnel. So that was a pretty big surprise to me that they took him out that way. But so now he's gone. And So Holden and Dana, they try to get away, speed away with the RV. When all of a sudden Holden is killed by a Zed that was in the RV that we didn't know was in there. So that causes them to crash down the mountain and crash into that lake. But Dana manages to get out. Now everybody at the lab seems all relieved and, well, we've won. It's done. It turns out, here is where you learn that they were all sacrifices and that they had to be sacrificed in a certain order, but that the fifth one, the virgin, which I thought was going to like be the twist, like she wasn't really, but the fifth one is optional, which means as long as the whatever gets their 4 sacrifices in order, the fifth one is not necessary, you know. So they're all celebrating like big party atmospheres, like the fucking Belko experiment. They're like throwing a big office party. Everybody's happy when they get a phone call and you hear the guy say, which one? Now, what I thought that they were saying on the phone to him was that don't celebrate too soon because she's not a real virgin. But instead, ta-da, I started to say my baby, Marty, shows back up. He's still alive. He managed to get through it. So he managed to get through it, and now they're fucked because Marty has to die. But he has to die before Dana, or the ritual doesn't work. So Marty ends up taking her to this hole, one of the graves, because he's figured it out. And he's like, this is where they came from. And there's a fucking elevator in here. So he takes her in there, and that's where we get to see that they're in sort of like a cube, which is another nod. So we get to see them as they're shuffled around in this cube, and we get to see a lot of different creatures that we recognize. And although, like I said, it was interesting to see how you could tell that was Hellraiser, but it was done just enough to not be Hellraiser so they wouldn't get sued. And they had a bunch of them like that. So they realize that they're in some real deep shit. So she figures out about the cellar choice. She figures out the whole routine. And this voice comes on because they managed to get out of the revolving cubes. And they're in this room, and a voice comes on and explains the ritual. Explains that they must die, or the ancients will rise. So, Dana, they manage to get into a control room where Dana frees all the creatures. So, that place becomes a meta bloody hell, or a bloody meta hell, with all of these different creatures killing all of the staff, and that was actually pretty cool. Hadley gets killed by the merman that he was bitching about, so you kind of like, I laughed at that because he had complained, I wanted it to be the merman, and I don't really remember a merman in horror history, to be honest with you. I mean, there's the creature from the Black Lagoon, but that thing didn't look like that. So I don't know. I don't know what that was supposed to be a nod to, but then again, we can't all know all. Although I like to think of myself as pretty close. So, Hadley gets killed by the merman. Dana herself kills Sitterson, so I was very glad to see both of them die. And then they end up in the ancient room. Now, when they get into the ancient room and they're looking around at the symbols and they have figured it all out, Um, they're in the middle of a conversation when we hear a voice, and the director walks in, and it's fucking Ripley, which makes you go, oh, no way. It's Sigourney Weaver. So she walks in, and in that wonderful monotone of hers, she tells the story of the ritual and the ancients and how, that the whole world will be destroyed and stuff like that. And then that's when I started to get really pissed. Because, yeah, I am talking about it like it's the first time I've seen it, because it was. You have no idea how many of my collection I have never gotten around to seeing. I have never seen The Cabin in the Woods. You are getting my just watched it last night reaction to The Cabin in the Woods. I try to do that with all of my movies, but a lot of them I've seen before, like A Cure for Wellness, which I just did. But there are times when this is the first time. So most of the time my notes are a first review. So yeah, so I was like blown away when Sigourney Weaver walked in and she explained it all. But like I said, now is when I started to get really pissed, because Dana was fixing to kill Marty, and I'm like, bitch, don't. Of course, then I thought to myself, but yeah, if she doesn't, though, the whole world's going to die. I mean, is that worth him staying alive? Like, I don't know. He's really cute. So, before, though, she can shoot, the Wolfman comes in and attacks her, and Marty sees it coming. And I'm like, good for you, man. I mean, the bitch was fisting to shoot him, okay? So I was like totally cool with him letting the bitch get eaten, even if it meant the end of the world, because that was rude. So, she's attacked. The director and Marty, they go down into a showdown fight, which was pretty cool. The director was then killed by this one-armed girl, that like Dana had been reading about in the diary. So Marty then kicks the director and the little girl. What'd she do? She put an axe in her head. That was pretty cool. Kicks them off into the ancient pit. And I actually thought that was going to be it, like maybe they would suffice as a sacrifice. But obviously not, because Dana and Marty are sitting there talking. They share some weed, and they talk about the end of the world, and everything starts rumbling. Because I am like kind of wondering, well, it got its sacrifice, but, I guess it didn't, that wasn't the Pringle that it wanted, right? So if you don't give me exactly what I want, no substitutes, then it doesn't work. I mean, they said the virgin was always optional. So how come the director didn't suffice? I don't know. But in any event, they're sitting there talking about the end of the world and how maybe that was okay. Then a giant hand pops up and destroys the cabin, and obviously we're fucked. And that was the end. So yeah, all of my time in horror, I've of course heard about this movie. As you see, I did buy it quite a while back. And like so many others, it just sits on my shelves, waiting for that moment. That moment when I go and look around and say, what do I want to do now? And there's a lot of them that are waiting, doing this. Every once in a while, they'll see me walk by, and the little movie will go, hey, you haven't watched me yet? Remember me? And there's some that'll probably surprise you, I mean, I've got all the Paranormal Activity movies in the box set. Never seen any of them. I've got Tremors. I've got all the Tremors. Never seen any of them. Got them all on Blu-ray. Never seen a damn one of them. So there's a lot of stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that you would think, well, you've got to have seen it. No. But you have it. Yeah, and I still haven't seen it. So, you know, there's lots of stuff like that. I'm looking around at shit right now. But yeah, so this was a first time watch. I've never seen a Cabin in the Woods. I really, really liked it. It was really, I mean, it had some silly shit. Like, I could really do without that licking the dead wolf's tongue thing. But it's just amazing. Some things thrill us that doesn't thrill others. What scares you won't scare me. What I find sexy, you don't. Who knows? We're individuals. The Cabin in the Woods, 2011. Chris Hemsworth. Fran, whatever his name was. Marty. Yes. And a special appearance by Sigourney Weaver, which was cool. I really, really liked it. I think it was very, very smartly put together. I like the pacing. I like the way they gave you little tidbits. And then finally at the end, the tidbits were put together. It was really good. Really good writing. Really good cinematography. I liked the CGI. It all worked really well. And I think it holds up really well. And that was the first time I've ever seen a Cabin in the Woods. And I liked it a great deal. And I like you a great deal. Thank you very much for taking the time to stop by. Tell me your thoughts about this movie if you have any. And I will see you in the next thing I do. Always remember and never forget, you are a very, very, very special person. Don't let anyone ever tell you different. And I will see you in the next one. Love you. Miss you. Bye-bye.